Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we are going to be taking a look at Poka-Yoke. And we'll be looking at this through the lens of Chapter 4 from a text all about equipment efficiency.
Okay.
Now, I know that Poka-Yoke, the name, might sound a little bit intimidating at first.
Yeah.
But it really is a total game changer when it comes to achieving near-perfect quality in any process.
That's right. And what is so interesting about Poka-Yoke is that it really challenges our traditional ideas of quality control.
Okay.
Instead of just inspecting for defects after they happen, it's about designing a system where mistakes are pretty much impossible to make.
So we're flipping the script on quality control.
Exactly.
Instead of, playing catch-up, we're stopping those errors before they even happen.
Yeah. And, even with really thorough inspections, some defects are always going to get through.
Right.
Humans are involved and people make mistakes.
Yeah, of course.
But Poka-Yoke asks, what if we could just totally eliminate the possibility of errors?
That's a pretty powerful idea, but how do we actually make systems foolproof?
Well, the term Poka-Yoke, it comes from Japan, and it basically means mistake-proofing.
Okay.
And so it uses clever design and an understanding of how errors happen to build in safeguards into our processes.
It's like those safety features that you see on cars now.
Yeah.
Lane departure warnings and blind spot detection and all that. Those are designed to prevent accidents before they happen.
That's a great analogy. And the great thing about Poka-Yoke is that it isn't just about fancy technology.
Right.
Some of the best Poka-Yoke solutions are actually incredibly simple and cheap.
I love simple and effective. Can you give me an example?
Sure. Think about the floppy disk.
Okay.
It had that little tab that you could slide to protect it.
Oh, yeah.
That was Poka-Yoke. Super simple, but prevented you from accidentally erasing your data.
Right.
That little tab was a lifesaver.
So I'm starting to get it. If Poka-Yoke is all about preventing mistakes, what kind of techniques are we talking about here?
Well, there are two main types, contact methods and non-contact methods.
Contact methods. What do those look like?
Contact methods, they use physical constraints or sensors to prevent errors.
Okay.
So, for example, let's say you have a part that needs to be a specific size to fit into a machine.
Right.
A contact method Poka-Yoke might be something like a size-limiting device that physically prevents the wrong part from being inserted.
So it's like a physical barrier to stop you from making a mistake.
Exactly. And, it doesn't just stop damage to the equipment.
Right.
It makes sure that the whole process runs smoothly and efficiently.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, what about those non-contact methods?
So non-contact methods use things like visual cues or warnings or checklists to help guide you to the right action.
Okay.
Like, those templates you see sometimes on machinery?
Yeah.
They show you the right settings for different operations.
Right.
Those templates, they get rid of the guesswork so you can be sure that you are doing things consistently.
So it sounds like Poka-Yoke isn't just about adding a bunch of gadgets and gizmos to things.
No, not at all.
It's more about designing smart systems and processes from the very beginning.
You got it. And that's where source inspection comes in.
Okay.
Source inspection means that instead of inspecting the finished product for defects, you are looking for the source of the error.
Oh, okay.
Before it even becomes a defect.
You find the error before it becomes a defect.
Exactly.
That's interesting. I always thought quality control was all about catching those flaws at the very end of the line.
Yeah.
But you were saying that it's actually much more efficient to stop those errors from happening in the first place.
Right. You can save a lot of time and resources that way.
Okay, I'm starting to see how that could work. So what are the different types of source inspection?
So there are two main types, vertical and horizontal.
Okay, what's the difference?
So vertical source inspection is all about checking for potential problems before a process even starts.
So before you even start.
Yeah, like making sure that you have the right materials, the right tools, the right information before you even begin.
Oh, so it's like laying a really solid foundation so that you can prevent those problems from popping up later on.
Exactly. And then you have horizontal source inspection, which is about building in checks and balances within the process itself.
Okay.
So that might involve having multiple people double-checking each other's work.
Gotcha.
Or using automated systems to keep track of certain parameters.
So you were basically creating all these checkpoints along the way.
Yeah.
To catch those little errors before they turn into big problems.
That's right. And, when you catch an error early, it's not just about preventing defects. It's about getting immediate feedback so you can make improvements right away.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But, at the end of the day, even with all of these safeguards, we're still dealing with humans, right?
That's true.
Can't completely eliminate human error, can we?
You're right, we are only human.
Yeah.
But Poka-Yoke doesn't stop at just preventing those errors.
Okay.
It also uses techniques like self-checks and successive checks to help minimize the impact of those inevitable human slip-ups.
Okay, can you break down those techniques a little bit more?
Yeah, so self-checks basically mean that workers are inspecting their own work as they go along.
Hmm.
They are looking for any deviations from the standard, and it really helps people take ownership of their work and feel responsible for the quality.
So it's like building those mini inspections into the workflow.
Exactly. And then successive checks are where the next person in line inspects the work of the person before them.
So it's like a chain of responsibility.
Yeah, and it adds another layer of accountability.
Right.
And helps to catch any potential issues right away.
I can see how those techniques can really create this culture of continuous improvement
Absolutely.
where you are constantly getting feedback and making those little adjustments to ensure that you are meeting those quality standards.
That's the beauty of Poka-Yoke. It's not about placing blame on anyone.
Yeah.
It's about building a system where everybody is able to contribute to the quality and efficiency of the work.
This is great stuff. Poka-Yoke has the potential to change not only individual processes, but entire organizations.
Right. That's pretty incredible.
That's right.
And I bet this is making you think about all the different ways it can apply outside of just manufacturing.
Yeah, definitely. And that's exactly what we're going to explore next. But first, we're going to take a quick break and be back in a moment.
One of the things that I think is so cool about Poka-Yoke is that it can be used in so many different industries.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just a manufacturing thing. It's this whole philosophy of error-proofing that can be applied anywhere.
Okay, I'm interested. Give me some examples. Show me how this Poka-Yoke magic works.
Okay, so let's say that you are working on a manufacturing line, and you need to make sure that you are using the right parts.
Okay.
Because if you use the wrong part, it could damage the equipment.
Right.
So a classic Poka-Yoke solution here would be to use a mechanical stop.
A mechanical stop. What is that?
Basically, it is a physical barrier that prevents the wrong parts from being used.
Okay.
So imagine a blade that is designed to only allow parts of a certain size to pass through.
Okay.
If a part is too big or too small, it gets redirected and it never makes it to the next stage of the process.
So it's like a bouncer at a club.
Yeah.
Only letting in the right parts.
Exactly.
I like it. So simple, but effective. What other tricks can Poka-Yoke do?
Well, one common issue is when you have to set up machinery with different settings for different products.
Yeah, I can see how that could lead to mistakes.
Right. And if you are relying on memory or guesswork, it can be a recipe for disaster.
Totally.
So a Poka-Yoke solution for this is to use templates.
Templates, like what we used in school.
Kind of, but with a much bigger impact.
Okay.
So these templates would clearly mark the correct settings for each product.
Oh, okay.
They could be markings right on the machine or even like separate face covers that are designed for specific products.
Gotcha. So there's no more guesswork and less room for error.
That's the idea.
Okay, so earlier you mentioned that Poka-Yoke could be used in other industries besides manufacturing.
Yeah.
So like healthcare, for example.
Exactly.
Healthcare is all about precision and accuracy.
It is, and one area where Poka-Yoke can really help is in preventing medication errors.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's super important.
Right, so one example is using color-coded syringes.
Okay.
So that nurses can quickly and easily identify the correct medication.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Just a simple visual cue like that could prevent a lot of problems.
Yeah, and another example is using barcoding systems for medication.
Okay.
So the nurse can scan the patient's wristband and the medication barcode, and that way they can be sure that they are giving the right medication to the right patient.
So you're adding in that extra layer of verification.
Exactly.
Wow. It's like Poka-Yoke is all about creating these layers of simple but effective safeguards.
It is, and it can also be used in finance.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like those security questions that you have to answer when you are accessing your bank account online.
Right.
Those are a form of Poka-Yoke.
Oh, wow. I never thought about it like that, but that makes sense.
Yeah, it's all about making it more difficult for someone to impersonate you and access your account.
It's amazing how all of these everyday things are actually examples of Poka-Yoke.
It's all around us. And I think one of the most important things about Poka-Yoke is that it helps to create a culture of vigilance and responsibility.
How so?
Well, techniques like self-checks and successive checks empower individuals to be more involved in the quality control process.
Right, so it's not just about the systems in place, it's about the people using those systems.
Exactly. Everyone has a role to play in ensuring quality.
I like that. It creates a sense of shared responsibility.
It does, and when everyone is working together to prevent errors, it can make a huge difference.
This has been a really eye-opening conversation. I'm starting to see Poka-Yoke everywhere now.
Me too. It really is a powerful concept.
So what are some of the key takeaways that you would like our listeners to remember?
Well, I think the most important thing is that Poka-Yoke is about more than just preventing errors.
Okay.
It's about creating a culture of quality.
Right, where everyone is committed to doing things, right?
Exactly. And when you have that kind of culture, it can lead to some pretty amazing results.
Okay, so let's recap some of the key points that we have covered today.
Sounds good.
All right, so let's recap everything that we've learned about Poka-Yoke.
Yeah.
We've gone from the basics. What is Poka-Yoke? Where did it come from?
Right.
But we've really discovered it's so much more than just a set of tools and techniques to stop making errors.
It really is.
We've seen how it can apply to so many different industries.
Yeah.
Manufacturing, healthcare, finance, it doesn't really matter.
And it can be used for all kinds of errors.
Yeah, exactly.
From those simple slip-ups to the ones that could have really big consequences.
You know what's really amazing to me is how simple a lot of the solutions are.
Uh-huh.
We talked about color-coded syringes and mechanical stops.
Right.
Even just those little write protect tabs on floppy disks.
Yeah, those were great.
It's amazing how these little design choices can have a huge impact on stopping errors before they happen.
Absolutely. Poka-Yoke is all about really understanding how those errors happen.
Right.
And then figuring out creative ways to make those errors impossible, or at least way less likely.
And we've seen how those solutions can involve all sorts of things. Physical barriers, visual cues, checklists, automated systems.
It's really flexible.
Yeah. And we also talked about the importance of source inspection.
Yeah, finding those errors early on.
Exactly, before they become a bigger issue.
It can save a lot of headache later on.
That shift from just reacting to problems to preventing them in the first place.
Yeah.
That's a key part of Poka-Yoke thinking.
For sure.
And then there's that human element.
Right.
Poka-Yoke knows that people make mistakes.
That's part of life.
Exactly. But instead of just blaming people,
Uh-huh.
it encourages us to be more careful and take responsibility. We're all a part of making quality happen.
Absolutely, you got it. Techniques like self-checks and successive checks.
Right. Those are the ones where you check your own work and then the next person checks it too.
That's right.
It's like that extra layer of making sure things are done correctly.
It really helps to prevent errors from falling through the cracks.
Thinking about all of this stuff with Poka-Yoke, it makes me think about lean manufacturing.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, lean is all about cutting out waste.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Making things more efficient, always improving how things work. Poka-Yoke seems to fit right in.
You're right, it does. They really do go hand in hand.
If you're stopping errors, you're cutting down on wasted time and materials.
Absolutely.
It all just clicks together.
And that constant drive to improve.
Yeah.
To always do things a little bit better.
That's a big part of both lean and Poka-Yoke.
Right. It's about always looking for ways to make things better.
Learning from those mistakes and trying to do things right.
I think that's one of the most important things to remember.
What's that?
That Poka-Yoke, it's not about being perfect.
Oh, okay.
It's about progress.
Making things better.
Yeah. We all make mistakes, but we can learn from them.
And build better systems so those mistakes don't keep happening.
Exactly.
So we've covered a lot today. What is Poka-Yoke, how it works, why it matters.
It's been great.
We've seen how powerful it can be in organizations and in our everyday lives. Now it's your turn.
What do you mean?
I want you to take all of this information and think about how you can use Poka-Yoke yourself.
Okay.
Where are there places in your work or in your life where mistakes happen?
Right.
How can you design those mistakes out?
Yeah, like foolproof your life.
Exactly. It might surprise you how much you can change just by thinking a little differently.
That's a good point.
It's about shifting from just reacting to problems to stopping them before they happen.
Right.
I think that's a great way to sum up this whole deep dive.
I think so too.
We've just started to uncover all the cool things about Poka-Yoke.
Yeah, it's a big topic.
But I hope this conversation got you curious and gave you some good ideas.
Me too.
So keep thinking, keep learning, and don't be afraid to experiment with making your world more mistake-proof.
That's great advice.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Until next time, keep on diving.